going on?
Robbie, I've been watching you, man. You are jamming. You
I
are
am?
absolutely jamming.
You're enjoying it?
It's great, man. It's great to talk to you.
Well, it's
Happy
great
May
to
the
talk to
4th.
you. Yeah, May the 4th be with you as well. It's great to talk to you because I've known you through Twitter and social media for a few years now, but we haven't gotten a chance to do something like this. So I have a bunch of stuff that I want to plug for you right off the bat. Host of Thank the Maker Pod with Ryan
that's
from
us.
Yellow Card. I've had Ryan on the podcast before. He's talked about that. You also host it with Adam from Story of the Year, Nick from Bayside. So it's the perfect, honestly, for My Mom's Basement fans, it's Star Wars and pop punk. That is right up everyone's alley there. It's not the only Star Wars pop punk thing you do, because Mosh Isley is part of your repertoire. I don't know how involved. I know you're very involved in that, but are you the creator of Mosh Isley?
Yeah, so it's kind of like Thank the Maker adjacent. You know, that for us, we wanted to, we realized that the guys have a big following of just people who love their music, right? And so we wanted to kind of do a party that was, we had a lot of people that were like, hey, are we going to do a Thank the Maker meetup? This is very common with people who have Discords and Patreons. And we said, why don't we just like throw a punk emo party that has lightsabers at Celebration, because everyone's already in our gear anyways. And so we were kind of like, let's just straight up call it a party. Let's tell everyone to bring costumes, bring their lightsabers. And the community like went hard at it. The emo, pop punk mashups of Star Wars have been incredible. And we've been able to do, gosh, I think tonight is in Vegas.
Yep.
And I think this is our 8th one that we've done.
Wow.
And,
all over, right? All over the country.
Dude, all over. It's been awesome. It started in Anaheim, then we've got to do one in New York for New York Comic Con. We really try to make them like con adjacent because we have a lot of people who are there anyways for the conventions. They're in our network anyways, and it's been super fun to see people come out, share their story, almost make like a custom. We've seen punk troopers, and our buddy Hunter made a custom like punk R5 unit. And so it's got spikes and it's got all these references to screw the Empire, blah blah blah, that kind of stuff. So it's been amazing, but it's always been a community effort for us, and for this is what we grew up on, right? If you're a millennial, you are like soaked up in this culture. So it's the perfect blend of all these things. But absolutely, man.
That's awesome. And are there tickets available? If people are watching from Vegas, can they come tonight still?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's at House of Blues in Las Vegas, and that's a pretty good sized venue. I know that we were debating between doing it on a Saturday night, but I guess Post Malone was in town last night, and House of Blues was like just the way that they're like just the way that the traffic and the congestion is very real. Obviously, you guys on the East Coast get that, but there's definitely, they were like, May the 4th, let's do a straight up May the 4th party. So we've got a local brewery called Beer Zombies there that's like brewing custom beer, and then the party, of course, Vegas is no stranger to weirdness. That's what I love about that place. So it's a perfect place perfect opportunity for people to come out, wear a costume, and scream your favorite tracks of your elder emo heart.
I need to make it to one. Like, this is absolutely a bucket list thing for me at this point.
Yeah.
I've got a couple bucket list things that I feel you're also associated with, though, because another podcast you do, it's called Armor Party, where you celebrate the costumes and the costume makers behind Star Wars. And I think the first exchange we ever had was like, hey man, it's a bucket list thing for me to join the 501st Legion. Where do I start? And I still haven't started, and it still pains me that I haven't made my first costume and joined the 501st Legion. But you have a ton at this point, correct? How many costumes do you have in terms of like your 501st stuff?
Man, I think I'm at 5 or 6. When all this fan stuff kind of started to take off, it kind of put it put a lot of my time, because building takes forever. My current work that I'm doing right now is Empire Strikes Back Boba Fett, and that costume in particular is the white whale of Star Wars costuming, because for a lot of people who don't know, Star Wars was in a weird spot because George is still self-funding Star Wars at this point. And they loved that costume so much, but they didn't really totally understand exactly that Boba Fett was going to take off and be the fan favorite that he became. They knew he was cool, but there were so many different versions of Boba in the prototyping stage where they weren't exactly sure how they were going to bring him to the screen. And so by the time we saw basically V3 of Boba Fett, the Empire Strikes Back edition, it doesn't exist anymore. They actually repainted the armor for Return of the Jedi. If that tells you how like just weird they were at a time, because now everything is archival. Everything goes to the archives at Disney after they've made every version of it. We've got Stunt, Hero, but the Empire Strikes Back version is truly the white whale for many people, because all the little parts, and like what's crazy is we're still finding things now that some people have been able to say, oh, my uncle worked on that. I found this, this was this note that I had in here, where you find that, someone had this one part of a record player that they end up using this nut. And of course, these crazy people in the 501st are like, we've got to find this nut on eBay, so they're buying stuff and putting it together. But it's an incredible costume. The paint is incredibly difficult. We have people who are replicating it all the way down to the original model train paint that was used, and they're finding this stuff on
model
eBay.
Train paint for Boba Fett? That's a fun fact.
Yeah, absolutely. So the railroad, if I had more of my stuff like accessible here, I would show you exactly I have the color chart of all the paints that were used with the swatches, because that's just how, you'd go through. I mean, mind you, in Light and Magic, I'm sure, which you've watched.
Yeah.
These are just they're like a bunch of 20-year-olds putting this stuff together. You
bunch
know
of
what I mean?
nerds, in the truest, like, greatest sense, that they were just so passionate, but also on a time crunch of like, hey, we got to figure out what works for all of this shit. You were talking about breaking down things. I mean, I think a lot of people know this, some may not. The original lightsaber from A New Hope. At the end of production, they were like, break it down for parts. Like, that doesn't
100%.
exist, the original Luke Skywalker lightsaber, because they were like, yeah, we're not going to need that again, right? We'll just make a new one. Nothing was archived at that point. It's so fascinating to look at it through that lens. I can't believe they're still finding out new things about, like, the Boba Fett costume. That's insane.
It's one of those things where, you're kind of looking at, especially from our standpoint, where you've had a lot of things that were kind of deconstructed over time, and you're also trying to look at them through a 1976 film lens, right?
Yeah.
So, and there's dust on the lens, and there's stuff where people are like, wait, is that a paint mark? No, that's dust on the lens, because that's literally some of the only references we have. And what's funny is that when you're building costumes, to make them more accurate, you actually have to make them look worse.
Yeah.
Like the Sand Troopers in A New Hope have duct tape on their packs, on their filtration packs. But a lot of people, when you build it accurately, because sometimes you'll find these little behind the scenes, and you'll go, wait a minute, that's the same captain that, where are you going with these droids? Like, you'll find a behind the scenes shot of these guys, and you're like, that guy's got duct tape on his back. Like, now I got to go back. I got to make my costume more. Yeah, you know what I mean? So it's funny how, this hobby has really made people absolutely neurotic about this stuff. But I always tell people, the reason that we're so dedicated to making details, to making details work, is because we're actually honoring all of the people who worked on this franchise, because you'll get the littlest thing that'll end up becoming something of lore, and that gets added on to some 40, 50 years later. And, for a lot of people who don't understand the power of costume, I think in our lexicon of breaking down and understanding what we see on the screen, it's like people who don't understand that the actors don't write their own lines. It's the same thing that actors don't pick their own costumes. The fact that people know what Han Solo looks like but don't know who John Mallo is one of those things where that's what I'm trying to do with a lot of these shows, and what we try to do with our podcast is just highlight people who have been a part of this universe that might not necessarily get the same love as the people that we come to see the final product. So that's always what it's been about for a lot of people in the 501st, and also about kind of some of the way that we have our shows, and just bring people kind of into the spotlight a little bit, because we think just like yourself, Robbie, right? Like, everyone, all these details matter, man.
The details are like our favorite part. Hearing stuff about, like, the duct tape stuff, I'm like, oh, that's so cool. That's the stuff we don't get. So you said you have 5 or 6. Take us through, like, your roster of outfits. I assume regular Stormtrooper, Scout Stormtrooper, stuff like that.
Yeah. So I'm in Michigan. I'm in Upper Michigan. So, the Snow Trooper, without a doubt, from Empire Strikes Back is one of my favorite suits to wear. And then I've got a Scout Trooper. Scout Trooper was the first one that I made, and growing up as a kid in Michigan, Endor was my setting, right? Where you can go up in woods, and you remember getting those. You get the toys and you bring them outside, and you're getting dirt in the Scout's knees because you're flying your speeder bike by. And so that was one of my costumes that I remember being like, that and I still maintain that it's one of the coolest costumes in
It's
all of
my
Star
favorite
Wars.
trooper for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%, because they just kind of almost had this like baseball cap looking helmet, and
Yep.
everything about it was
The
just
snipers
awesome.
too, like they're the marksman troopers and everything like that about
Yeah.
them made it cooler to me.
Yeah, absolutely. So everything about that costume was awesome. I had the sand trooper that I ended up selling fairly recently to get a friend back into trooping. I've got a stormtrooper that's almost ready to be submitted for building. I've got a imperial officer, and I'm thinking, man, there's got to be one more. Oh, the Narkina 5 from Andor.
Yeah.
That's one of the easiest kits to get in the 501st with, but we ended up doing that run at Celebration, where all the prisoners run through the Celebration Hall together, chanting "One Way Out." Actually, when we were in Japan for Celebration, Tony Gilroy called us out because they put us all together, everyone in those white Narkina suits, and he comes out, says hi to everyone, and looks right over at our group, and he's like, "See, this is what I'm talking about. This is the fandom of this franchise right here." And that was a really cool opportunity I think for him to also see, there's plenty of people in Hollywood too that contribute to Star Wars as just they're a writer on a project, they're a director or something. They move on to other projects, but to go to Celebration and see all these people who have recreated your costume, who have like totally immersed themselves into the world that you build. I don't think a lot of people in Hollywood get to really experience that until they get into Star Wars.
I think you're right. And Celebration itself is such a unique thing because it's not even like you're doing a panel at a Comic-Con where you might have a big crowd. It's like we are all here for the exact same thing. I love the 501st Legion. I always have. I absolutely will join at one point, and I'm sure I'll hit you up for advice and help in joining and all of that. I'm actually having my friend join. My friend Vinny is joining later on because he will be the Scout Trooper at Yankee Stadium today for May the 4th with the 501st, and he's going to join and recap the whole experience.
Yeah, I got Vinny. Vinny was reaching out to me. He's like, because we have a mutual friend in Danny K from the All Time Low Camp, and he's played guitar in our band for a couple of months while we were trying to figure out our next move. And so when we got all this circle, and Danny reached out and goes, "Man, my buddy Vinny's he's into this stuff, man." So we ended up getting him a costume for his wedding.
Yes.
And so he was like, "Yeah, I really want this Scout." So I'm walking him through it. And then once he got approved, man, he was like, "Dude, I get it. I see what it's all about. I see why you guys are fanatical about this." Cause you get this sense, I think, for a lot of people within the club, I think we know ourselves well enough. And this is how I always refer to myself, is like, I know that I might not be a soup kitchen kind of person. Like, I'm not going to go and ladle soup and say, "Hey, that was my good charity." But like, if I can go and help raise money for my community in some sense by putting on the costume and doing a Star Wars themed fundraiser, visiting a children's hospital, doing something that makes people happy, I'm all in, man. I'll wear that costume for hours on end. And that's where you find a lot of 501st are really into that sense of community, because they know that it brings people so much joy to be able to have Star Wars come off the screen for them. And if we can suspend that magic for someone, if we can make them just forget for a second that the world isn't the place that it is right now, that's a job well done. And so I think that's why you find that connective tissue about why people build a costume. They get so passionate about just being a part of Star Wars. It's truly one of the coolest things that you get to do once you get over yourself of saying, is this too much? It's like, you're not. You got 15,000 people worldwide that are cheering you on. So when you make that community a little bit smaller, it truly does make you feel like you're part of a family, and it's amazing. And I'm part of the Legion staff, and our commanding officer, who kind of runs the whole show, is right there in Jersey City. So
really? Wow.
Yeah. So he's right across the way, and just became the CEO of Roosevelt's, which is what I'm rocking here today. I put on my best suit
Great
just
merch
for you, Robbie. But they're over in Hoboken, so I mean, you got a lot of connections right over there.
I didn't even realize that. Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned it, Star Wars Celebration Japan. You were lucky enough to go this year. Tell me about that experience, because I went in Orlando and Chicago. It was amazing. I loved every step of the way. But Japan, was that a different animal?
I mean, I think I've done Anaheim, and are you guys planning on going to LA?
Oh yeah, absolutely trying to get there. I said I will change everything in my schedule to make sure I'm there.
Yeah. Get the whole crew. I mean, I honestly, I would say anybody at Barstool who's even considering going, you have to go just to be a part of, like, just to see what it's like. Because I
Yeah.
think for some, in all the, all the noise online about what, Star Wars is dead, all this stuff, just people who are just angry for some reason, you go to Celebration, and it is truly one of the most incredible experiences of being able to stop at any point with any person walking by you and go, yo, what do you think about that panel that we just saw? And all of a sudden, you've got 12 people being like, yo, Ahsoka's coming back. We're getting a mall trailer. Like, this is crazy. And it makes you realize that the part of it that I love, and I hope your experience is probably the same, Robbie, but like, you're standing in line with all these people and you see old dudes, young kids, all in this like hype for everything that's there. And it is truly one of the times where you look at it and go, this is why this franchise is special. Because Luke Skywalker is still the same character that he was in 1977. Darth Vader is still the same character. And everyone, whether you're 75 or whether you're 7, you're agreeing Star Wars is awesome.
Yeah.
Handshake, right? And Celebration is just truly the magnification of that. And to answer your question, I mean, Japan was amazing for a lot of reasons, because part of not just the convention was you really got to almost kind of see a little peek into what George was thinking when he was so influenced by Kurosawa films,
Yeah.
and just the idea of Japanese culture and philosophy and approach to things, because you're walking around Tokyo going, man, this almost feels like a different world in terms of their approach to architecture, their philosophy to, not being afraid to, I mean, throw, 33 million people in Tokyo, 8 million in New York. You know what I mean? And you're
Yeah.
like, how do they move all these people around? How do they do all this stuff? And so I think from a standpoint of walking around and seeing some of these temples and these shrines, and just kind of their approach to making sure that, beauty is a part of their everyday life, it makes you understand a little bit more about the decisions that George made when he was informing, Ralph McQuarrie about, hey, what about this? What if this building looked like this? What if this planet looked like this? The scene between Morgan Elsbeth and
Yeah.
Ahsoka Tano in Mando season 2, man, I think I went there. You know what I mean? I know it was a set, but I think I went there.
Yeah.
So it was incredibly cool to see that. A lot of amazing art. Really
The
cool
artwork
to
for
just
this convention, yeah, I was going to say the theme was my favorite theme Star Wars Celebration has ever had.
insane. I met the artist. I actually bought a couple prints from the guy who made the badge art. All of
Yes,
that kind of
that's
like,
the stuff that I loved. Yeah, I want prints of that stuff to hang up. Yeah.
yeah. I might have an extra Ahsoka one, so reach out to me after. 'Cause
Okay, I will.
It's a beauty, dude.
Yeah.
But yeah. I hope you get the chance to get everyone that you can to come to LA, because I think LA for the 50th of Star Wars is going to be, I think, on a level in terms of just accessibility for not only them to did you go to Anaheim? Were you able to do that?
No, so I only did Orlando and Chicago. Orlando was the 40th of A New Hope.
Yeah,
And it felt
yeah.
huge. We had
Sure.
Force Awakens had just come out. We were looking forward to Last Jedi still. I
Yeah.
think we're going to get like a similar vibe with the 50th. That's what I've been saying. Like, obviously, we did the Disney Boys trip with Dave, and I was like,
Yeah.
he wanted to dress up for that, and then didn't know Disney has these rules about what you can and cannot wear. This,
Sure.
we're going to tell him, like, oh, you could go full Darth Vader if you want,
Yeah.
helmet on, all
Yeah.
of it. And we're going to try to drag him to it, because that would be
Yeah.
great to have, like, Dave at Star Wars Celebration would be hysterical.
Well, I think from the standpoint, and that's like, I think a lot of people, it's like even Dave's like approach to things is like, he's still relatively like a new fan in regards
Yeah.
of going, like, coming at it from an adult lens, which I think is always fascinating, because in some ways, I think part of the reason that we talk about this on Thank the Maker all the time, sometimes we get this interesting dynamic between people who are judging Star Wars knowing that it's a film, versus when you grow up with it, you treat it like a philosophy. And so when we have these, I always find it really interesting to talk to people like that, because you kind of you get little insight as to like what they think is believable, or what they think is like, I can
Yep.
connect with this because it maybe reminds them of a different character in a different franchise. But I think just seeing the hype for Star Wars at Celebration is truly unmatched. You get a lot of people who are like, I'm buying in. I'm after
Oh
this,
yeah.
dude. I am a fan. And I think we in Anaheim they had this thing called the Mandalorian Experience, which was where they brought all of the props, all of the costumes in this giant in one of the halls, and you got to see the Bantha from Book of Boba Fett. You got to see the Rancor head from Book of Boba Fett. You got to see literally Din's N1 that was sitting in the garage that
Wow.
Pelimato's working on. And they had a working, Legacy was in there working the Grogu to like wave at you if you looked at him. And you got to see how they made Cad Bane's face and how they actually made it work. It was this like exploded view. And I think for people who have to remind themselves that Star Wars' philosophy is built in practical effects. They want to make as much of this stuff as they can and not just have it be a CGI schlock fest. So, from my standpoint, when we're in the heart of Hollywood, we're there. So I think we are going to get a display that we have never
Oh, you're
seen on
right.
that level.
I didn't even think
In
about that factor. Yeah.
100%, and in combination with George's actual museum opening, it's going to be. I'm almost like I should book a trip for a week and just go.
Yeah.
And just go
Because
hang
everyone's
there's
going to be trying to see the George Museum as well.
100%. And I hope that people also understand that like that museum in particular isn't just going to be a Star Wars museum. It's going to be,
Yeah.
A
All
nod
film
to
and
actual,
arts, right? Like, yeah.
and the stuff that inspires him, right? Because it's not just it's not just Star Wars. It's all of the things, his love of World War II films, his love of muscle cars and all of those things that inspired a lot of the motifs within Star Wars. I'm like trying to figure out how I can just move out there for 2 weeks and just go. I'm saying yes to stuff. You know what I mean? Pop-ups everywhere.
What was your favorite thing you got to see at Celebration this year? Were you in the room when they showed the Mando trailer?
Oh man, we were lucky enough to get invited this year from Star Wars with the show, and so we got to be put in the VIP spot, which is really great. And I definitely like we always try to do a thing where we show appreciation for a lot of people who aren't able to be there because we know how difficult. First of all, international travel is, but also just people who we had a friend that was supposed to go that unfortunately lost his home in Altadena
Oh,
in the
man.
wildfires. And so you had a lot of people in California that weren't able to go because they just couldn't make that call. So we tried to, kind of be as open and sharing stuff as much as we could just to make people feel like they were a part of it. But when they brought Sean Levy out, I was like, okay, all right, we're getting a little bit of a peek into what we saw, but I had no idea that they would bring out Gosling.
Yeah.
And so that was super fun because like I'm as much as Star Wars is my thing, I maintain our buddy Ryan Key from Yellow Card was like, here's the thing I like about this, because you got some people who are like, oh, these big actors in Star Wars, it doesn't, I hear it. That guy doesn't make a bad movie.
I'm with you on that. That was
You
one
know
of
what I
my main
mean?
things. Like his taste in what he selects to make,
His
like
scripts,
that
choice of
puts
script,
faith
yeah.
in this for me. Where I'm
Yes.
like, oh shit, like this must be good if he's signing on to it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I watched Blade Runner 2049 on the way over because I'm like trying to kill 13 hours, right?
Yeah.
And and you can kind of see the sense of when they brought out Starfighter, I was like, okay, so obviously our speculation is starting to turn. We're like, man, is this the Rogue One movie? Or I'm sorry, is this the Rogue Squadron movie? Is this kind of an adaptation of that? Is this Drive in Star
Yeah.
Wars?
Oh my God, that
like
sounds awesome. Hook that into my veins.
right.
I'm ready to go.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that was really exciting. Just seeing we were in the animation panel when Dave was talking about what's next for animation. Sam Witwer comes out, just chews on this
From
mall roll.
Maul,
I think
right?
that's
Yeah.
man. It was awesome how hyped we were to see that, because we had speculation that there was going to be a show, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think anybody expected that we would literally get both. From my understanding of it is we're actually going to get some stories of what George Lucas's concept of the sequel trilogy was in this show
Wow.
with Darth Talon, Maul's apprentice, and wherever she goes. But again, what I love about Star Wars is, man, whatever happens in this show is going to open up future possibilities for where we continue to take Star Wars. So, Asajj Ventress from Tales of the Underworld today. Are we going to see more Cad Bane? I'm just like, where's Darth Talon going to be in this? Like, dude, the doors are open, and I love this franchise for doing stuff like that.
I was just mentioning on stream, I said Star Wars is the best in terms of recycling. If there's any piece of concept art, if there's anything from the original trilogy that went unused, they'll get to it. One day they'll get to it. And they'll do it well. It's like, I love that stuff. That's one of my favorite factors about Star Wars in general. What was now I've seen the bootlegged version. I probably shouldn't say that. I'll get hit with a Death Star strike. But I've seen a version of the Mandalorian trailer. What was it like watching that in the crowd? That's my favorite part of Celebration is, I was there when Ian McDiarmid came on stage and it was revealed he was back, and it was like the Undertaker came out at a wrestling event, It was like amazing. Sure. So what was the reaction like after that amazing teaser trailer played?
I mean, I think that for that group in particular, Mando and Grogu has kind of become the face of Star Wars since 2019, right?
True.
And I think to get the heavy hitters like Sigourney Weaver on as they showed some behind the scenes of her. She didn't make it into the teaser trailer, and actually that teaser trailer for the most part was shown at D23. They just added a couple more scenes. So it was definitely, the opening starts off with basically Din inside of somehow gets into an AT-AT, and he's just putting the womp. This is Lateef Crowder dos Santos just doing what he does, and it is literally every kit in Din's arsenal in terms of like the vibro. He sticks a vibro blade right into this guy's chest. He blasts this guy with the with his flamethrower. He just like roundhouses this dude. It is straight up, if you were looking for like, man, I feel like Din was just going on a bunch of adventures. Well, the adventure found himself as John Wick in this one. And I think for a lot of people, the excitement of going, and what's cool, of course, is like, we're in that 5 years after, right? So even the AT-ATs have made some adaptations a little bit, right? So don't be surprised if you see a couple things of what they've learned, what the Empire has learned, to maybe say, oh, last time we had these things out at Echo Base, they figured out how to take us down. We're going to make sure we don't do that. The one thing they probably didn't prepare for was to have a Mandalorian get inside of the house. But what's awesome about it is just the thrill of people really kind of experiencing that this is going to be Star Wars back in the theater is what I took from it, because I think for a lot of us, having Star Wars as part of our almost like our American lexicon of what Star Wars means to us. Revenge of the Sith back in the theaters, right? Like the hype is unmatched seeing it on a screen that it's deserved to be seen on. And so I think this is really where the excitement is coming from, not just in where the story is going to take us, but also just the fact that it's going to be a classic cinema experience with Star Wars.
Dude, I was going to bring up Revenge of the Sith because I had this tweet about it where I went to see it last weekend. And as I showed up to the movie theater, they said, hey, just to let you know, the AC is broken. It ain't on in there. It's pretty hot. So if you want to go in there and come out and get a refund, we totally understand. We went in. It was pretty warm in there, but we were like, it's Revenge of the Sith. We're going to stick it out. We're going to see if we can stick it out. Everyone in the theater stuck it out and 100%. Sat in that hot theater, and they would rather pay $20,
baby.
Yes, and they would rather pay $20 to watch a 20-year-old movie than sit at home comfortably on their couch and watch it on Disney Plus, because it is a different experience. And when you hit the fanfare and you hit a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, chills every time. Like I'm not able to sit in a movie theater, see that on the big screen and not get instant goosebumps and feel like, oh my God, here we go. We're about to go to this galaxy far, far away. And then I want to know your favorite Star Wars memory. I know you've gotten to experience so much over the years through the podcast, through your fandom in general. Do you have a favorite memory that sticks out?
Man, that's a great question, Robbie. I think for me, when I look at the memory, it's actually, I think when I go back to, I use this as an example of like when I built my first costume in the 501st, you've taken your steps into a larger world. There was definitely a part of it where I realized that I was, I think for a lot of people and my mom's basement and all these things, like you take a risk putting yourself out there as going, sure, people knew that they loved me about this, but like this kind of takes it to a level where you're like, I want people to know me for this. And so I think when I built a costume in 2015, 2016, I got approved in 2017. I had a 1-year-old, I think she was 2 at the time. I was kind of saying like, yeah, I'm going to sign up for maybe actually instead of going to the movie theater on opening night, I'm going to go and work. I'm going to be in a costume representing Lucasfilm, and I'm going to interact with people and have this kind of just change my approach to the Star Wars fandom. But really what that did was that just opened me up to being like, I'm kind of embracing this. I'm embracing the fact that, I went to an all boys Catholic high school for most of my time, and like being a Star Wars fan in the early 2000s, like wasn't that cool, man.
Yeah.
It was a lot of sneaking away to be like, yeah, I'm going to go see a movie tonight. People are like, what are you going to see? Like old school? I'm like, yeah, exactly. Of course. I think it's called Attack of the Clones, but definitely old school for sure.
And it's definitely my third time seeing it in theaters.
Yeah, without a doubt. Like, yeah, hey Frank, yeah, she's okay.
Yeah.
But looking at it from a standpoint of kind of really just like choosing to embrace who you are, and that's where I think the coolest part about being authentic within yourself has led to all these amazing opportunities of just connecting with other fans, and from there it's turned into a podcast. It's turned into Mosh Isley. It's turned into having the opportunities to see your friends work on the shows, and then to be able to talk to people that you would have never thought you'd be able to connect over. But it kind of opened the door to starting this kind of connective mainline, this connective telephone conversation between all these different people. And so I think building the costume, joining the 501st was probably that moment for me of kind of embracing the fact that you're now going to be known as the Star Wars guy in your community, which I think at one point was almost gave people reservation because it was like, quote unquote, my mom's basement, right? Embracing that and letting people really just say, hey man, what else do I have to lose? If this makes me happy and it's not hurting anybody, like be part of it. Be yourself, be stoked. At this point, like if there is anything in the world that is making you happy, there's probably other people who agree with you and they want to be a part of your crew. And that's really what I've taken from joining the 501st, but then also just finding all these other amazing people within the Star Wars fandom is the passion for it, the drive for it, the amount of excitement for it is endless. And I think that's what keeps me going in a lot of times. And it feels good to be at 2025 stoked about more Star Wars coming to theater, stoked about Andor,
Yes.
stoked about maybe getting a Skeleton Crew season 2. I'm like, all of it, I'm here for it. So
Yes.
that's my long-winded short answer.
No, it's a great answer. I'm in agreement with you about all of it. I'm right there wanting to be in your crew. I think everything you got going on is the coolest shit imaginable, which I'm sure is a flip from what you thought it was in high school or whatever in the early 2000s. But HondoSupply, that's your handles on everything. We've got it on screen now so people could see. A must follow if you're a Star Wars fan. Absolutely. Thank the Maker Pod. Check out all of your stuff that you have going on. Mosh Isley, as we mentioned tonight in Vegas. Thank you for joining the stream. I appreciate the time. I appreciate you celebrating May the 4th with us today.
Absolutely, Robbie. Thank you as always. And of course, like we got to have you on the pod. We'll talk about, over the summer, we're going to have a little bit of a drought. So I think for a lot of people, we're going to look at, a little bit of speculation, but also maybe going back and kind of saying, hey man, how did we get here? So we'd love to have you on the show. Come talk with us. And then when I'm out in New York visiting a couple friends, I'll make sure to hit you up and
come by. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be great. So appreciate you, man. May the 4th be with you. And to all the crew over there, make sure your lightsaber doesn't go red.
I love it. Thank you, Mike.
Cheers.
Big W to Mike in the chat. We're already getting the W's to Mike in the chat. I see Andrew hit the W. Mike.